Welcome back to Cliffhangers and Page Turners. Think of this as your express ticket to understanding a great book.
Like your favorite book club chat, maybe?
Yeah.
But, quicker.
Exactly. And this week, well, we're diving deep into a real cornerstone of American literature.
That's right. We're exploring Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. It's a novel practically everyone recognizes, and for, well, some very compelling reasons.
Absolutely. It's an adventure story, sure, but it also holds up this, fascinating mirror to society.
And it's all seen through the eyes of young Huck. His voice is just unforgettable.
So unique. We're going to unpack some key events, really get into what makes this book stick around. Forget the dusty literary analysis you might remember from school. We're here to explore the surprising bits, the kind of peculiar moments that might have slipped past you, even if you've read it before.
So where should we start? That opening notice, maybe?
Yes. Let's jump right in with that. That really strange notice Twain puts right at the beginning.
It's so unusual, isn't it? No motive, no moral, no plot to be found, and under penalty of prosecution, banishment, even shooting. It immediately signals, I think, that this isn't going to be your typical neatly wrapped up story. It's like Twain is saying, okay, buckle up, this might get a bit messy.
Exactly. It almost feels like he's winking at us, the readers, suggesting we should maybe focus more on the journey, the characters, rather than searching for some grand, overarching message.
Yeah, enjoy the ride.
And then, boom, we meet Huck, stuck in that quote-unquote civilized world with the widow Douglas and Miss Watson. You can almost feel his discomfort, can't you?
Oh, definitely. He's caught, isn't he? Between the forced order of their lives, prayers before eating, proper clothes,
right,
and this deep yearning for the freedom he used to have. Sleeping in the woods, the old rags. He said sleeping in the house felt smothery.
That description tells you everything. It highlights that fundamental tension, that push and pull that, well, it drives so much of what happens next.
And even in these early bits, Twain uses these tiny little details that reveal so much, like the salt cellar incident.
Oh, yeah. Huck spilling the salt, trying to throw some over his shoulder to ward off bad luck.
And Miss Watson immediately jumps on him. Don't do that, Huckleberry. That's wicked.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how Twain subtly shows that clash. Huck's sort of ingrained folk beliefs versus Miss Watson's very formal religious view.
It's not just a throwaway moment. It really hints at the diverse cultural landscape back then, different ways people understood the world, superstition versus scripture.
And then there's his connection with Tom Sawyer. That adds another layer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tom represents a different kind of escape, one built on, the exciting stuff you find in books. Think about their gang.
Oh, yeah.
We think Twain is showing us through all their imaginative play.
It's just a brilliant satire of those romantic adventure tales. They create this really elaborate oath and these dramatic, often totally absurd plans based on what they've read.
Like killing families who reveal secrets.
Right. It's childish fantasy, but taken to such a ridiculous extreme.
And the insistence on doing things by the book, even when it makes zero sense, like ransom demands or the weird rule about not harming women in their robberies.
Yeah, it's illogical.
It really underscores how deeply stories can shape how we see the world, even when that understanding is, well, completely impractical. It's almost commentary on narrative itself, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. It's this funny but pretty telling gap between the sort of idealized world of fiction and the often messy reality Huck actually lives in.
Right.
Speaking of which, Huck has some very real-world problems. Namely, his father, Pap.
Oh, Pap, yeah. A truly menacing figure in Huck's young life. And Huck's attempt to keep his inheritance safe from him, that leads him to a clever, if maybe symbolic, act.
Selling his fortune to Judge Thatcher for just $1. It's a desperate move, isn't it? Driven by the very real threat Pap represents. And even this early, Twain weaves in these intriguing superstitions. What role do they play?
They add such a rich layer to the story. They really reflect the beliefs and anxieties that were common back then.
Like Jim's hairball.
Yeah, Jim's hairball is a source of prophecy, or
Sure.
Huck being so uneasy about spilling salt. These aren't just quirky little details. They give you insight into the cultural mindset, how people interpreted the world around them.
Which sets a pretty ominous tone for Pap's inevitable return. He's just a force of pure disruption.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
His drunken demand for Huck's money is bad enough, but then he launches into that really disturbing rant. What's the significance there?
It's raw, isn't it?
It is. His outburst about the government and the free black man from Ohio,
Right.
it's just this unfiltered expression of ignorance and really deep-seated prejudice.
It's a stark look.
It forces you, the reader, to confront the ugliness of racism in that era.
And things escalate fast, don't they? Pap's actions get more and more erratic until he actually kidnaps Huck, takes him upriver to that isolated cabin. It's a period of intense fear and confinement for Huck. What does this isolation achieve in the story?
It really pushes Huck to a breaking point. We see Pap's terrifying hallucinations, his drunken instability. It's awful.
Yeah.
This extreme situation forces Huck to think about drastic measures for his own survival. He needs a complete break.
And he stages his own death with astonishing detail, too. It's almost theatrical in its, well, grimness. Why go to such lengths?
Finding the canoe, killing the wild pig, using its blood on the axe, scattering the meal, dragging a sack of rocks to look like a body being dragged.
It really emphasizes his desperation, but also his intelligence and resourcefulness. He has to create this totally believable scene.
To escape a genuinely life-threatening situation.
And then he paddles over to Jackson's Island, hides, watches the ferry boat searching for his body.
The cannons firing to try and make the corpse float up. The loaves of bread with quicksilver baked in them, meant to float to the body. More superstition.
It must have been surreal for him watching his own funeral search.
And then, just as he's starting to enjoy the peace and freedom of the island, he finds Jim.
Right. Miss Watson's slave, Jim, also run away. Jim's initial reaction is priceless, thinking Huck's a ghost.
Don't hurt me, don't. I ain't ever done no harm to a ghost.
But once that's cleared up, finding Jim there, it completely changes Huck's journey, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Because Jim isn't just escaping discomfort. He's escaping slavery. He overheard Miss Watson planning to sell him down the river to New Orleans for $800.
That immediately raises the stakes. It's not just Huck's personal adventure anymore. It becomes about freedom in a much bigger, more profound way. They become partners in escape.
And their different ways of seeing the world really come out on the island. Jim's deep belief in signs and omens.
Like the young birds flying low, meaning rain is coming.
Or his story about investing money based on the hairball's advice and losing it. His beliefs and dreams. It shows his character, but also, again, that window into the folk beliefs of the time.
Contrasting with Huck's more maybe practical outlook, though Huck believes some of it too.
Yeah, he's learning from Jim. But maybe the most powerful thing Jim says on the island
Is when he says he's rich already.
Exactly. I owns myself, and I's worth $800.
Wow. Just hearing it like that.
It's such a moving statement of self-worth, a huge indictment of a system that treats him as property. For Jim to claim ownership of himself, it's incredibly powerful.
They find that cavern just in time, too, before that massive storm hits.
Okay.
Twain's description is amazing.
Yeah, the lightning, the thunder, it's nature just unleashed, kind of mirrors the turmoil in their own lives.
And after the storm, they find that floating house washed downstream, with all that strange stuff inside and the dead man.
Which Jim covers up so Huck doesn't see the face. Foreshadowing there, of course. It's just another reminder of the river's unpredictability, life and death floating side by side.
And then the rattlesnake incident. Huck plays a prank, puts a dead snake in Jim's bedding.
And its mate comes and bites Jim, which leads to all the folk remedies. Eating part of the snake, tying the rattles around his wrist.
It shows their vulnerability, out there alone, relying on what they know or think they know.
And it's another moment where Huck feels terrible for causing Jim pain. His conscience is definitely developing.
Hearing that ferry boat pass later, with people still talking about Huck's murder, that must have been chilling for Jim. But it also shows how much he cares about Huck.
Yeah, his distress is genuine. It shows their bond is getting stronger. He's relieved. Huck is okay, not just worried about being caught himself.
So they get a raft, and life on the raft becomes this kind of idyllic escape for a bit, just drifting down the river.
Twain's descriptions of the river, the stars, the quiet. It's beautiful, a pocket of peace.
But peace on the river never lasts long in this book, does it?
Nope.
Yeah.
Thick fog rolls in. Eerie sounds of other boats, unseen voices.
And then they stumble upon the wrecked steamboat, the Walter Scott.
And Huck, being Huck, driven by that curiosity inherited from Tom Sawyer maybe, decides they have to investigate against Jim's better judgment.
Which leads them right into another dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Overhearing those three men, two planning to kill the third, arguing over money.
It's raw human darkness again. Greed, betrayal, violence. They barely escape with their lives, managing to steal the robber's skiff just as the wreck starts breaking up.
But then the fog gets even worse and they get separated. Huck in the canoe, Jim on the raft. That's a terrifying sequence.
Huck's panic, yelling for Jim, getting lost in the fog, and then finally finding the raft again. Jim's asleep.
And Jim's reaction when he wakes up and sees Huck, it's pure relief, pure emotion, overjoyed.
Which makes Huck's next move even worse.
Ah, the trick, pretending it was all a dream.
Yeah, telling Jim he must have dreamt the fog, the wreck, the separation. It's a really cruel prank, actually.
But it backfires, doesn't it? Because Jim describes the dream in such detail, remembering the fear, the relief, and then he realizes Huck was lying.
And he gives Huck that speech about how hearts can be broken, how friends shouldn't treat friends that way, calling Huck trash.
And Huck says he felt so mean he could have kissed Jim's fun. That's a huge moment for Huck. He finally truly sees Jim, not just as a companion, but as a person with deep feelings. It's a major step in his moral growth.
A really crucial turning point.
Yeah.
So they keep going, still hoping to get to Cairo, Illinois, where they can sell the raft and take a steamboat up the Ohio River to the Free States.
But then they encounter the skiff with the men looking for runaway slaves.
This is it, the big moral test for Huck. Society, his upbringing, everything tells him he should tune Jim in.
You can feel his internal conflict. He even starts to paddle towards the men, thinking it's the right thing to do.
But then he thinks about Jim, about their friendship, Jim calling him his only friend, and he just can't do it.
He makes that split-second decision to lie. Tells the men the person on the raft is his white father, sick with smallpox.
It's an incredibly powerful act of defiance against the society he was raised in. He chooses loyalty to his friend over the law, over everything he's been taught is right.
And the lie works perfectly, of course. The men are terrified of smallpox, give Huck money out of pity, and paddle away as fast as they can.
It highlights the power of fear, but more importantly, it seals Huck's commitment to Jim. He's crossed the line, morally, in his own mind, but he's chosen humanity.
Their relief at escaping that is huge. But then, disaster strikes again.
Yeah, they realize in the fog and confusion they must have passed Cairo, missed the turn for the Ohio River. Their path to freedom just slipped by.
And almost immediately after that realization, a huge steamboat crashes right into their raft,
Smashing it to pieces.
Yep.
Huck gets thrown one way, Jim another. They're separated again.
and Huck swims ashore, ending up at the Grangerfords estate.
Which, of course, sets the stage for a whole new, very different kind of adventure and a whole new set of problems.
Wow. We've really only just scratched the surface of Huck's early journey, haven't we? But hopefully this deep dive has given you listening a fresh taste of the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. It's amazing how many key themes and truly memorable moments Twain packs into just this part of the story.
Indeed. We've touched on that yearning for freedom, the complexities of morality, the sharp satire of societal norms, and of course that evolving crucial bond between Huck and Jim.
It's a book that continues to resonate, doesn't it? Because it tackles such fundamental parts of the human experience.
Absolutely.
So if this deep dive has piqued your interest, and maybe you haven't experienced the full journey of Huck Finn, we highly, highly recommend picking up the book. There's so much more to discover beyond what we could cover today.
Definitely. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. What were your key takeaways from these early adventures? Or maybe your favorite moment? Share your insights with us in the comment section.
Yeah, please do. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Cliffhangers and Page Turners for more of these deep dives into the world of literature.
And please join us next week for episode 12. We'll be venturing into the Cavern by Kelly Keevins. We're really looking forward to exploring that one with you.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive into Huck Finn. Until next time, happy reading.